good afternoon, good evening, good day, good night. Either way, whatever time of day it is that you're watching this video, I hope you are having a wonderful day. Okay guys, so today what I thought I would do is an editing tutorial walking you through the editing process behind the two Treecreeper photos that you will see in my latest video. If you've not watched that yet, please do go ahead and watch it. While you're at it, subscribe, like this video, watch this one, and then hit the bell so you'll be notified of the next episode when that comes out. So let's open Lightroom up and jump straight in. Okay, so in Lightroom you can see here we've got the two original unedited photos of the Treecreeper. This one I'm going to crop down it into a 4x5 portrait for Instagram, and this one I'm going to keep as a landscape. So let's start with this one. Obviously the first thing we're going to do is go to the crop tool. I'm going to go to 4x5, hit the aspect tool, and we're going to make a portrait image here, and then I'm going to try and get it so that the bird and the tree are about half the image, and about half the image is the background, all nice and out of focus, which is good. And then I'm going to up the exposure a little bit just to see what I'm doing, see the effects of the changes that I'm making. But I'm not going to worry too much about the exposure right now, because I'm going to be using the radial and graduated filters to kind of play with the direction of the light and how I'm going to use the light in the image to emphasize the Treecreeper. So the exposure is fine for now, just like that. I'm going to up the clarity slightly just to bring the detail and the texture out on the tree and on the Treecreeper. Everything else I think is pretty much okay for now. I'm just going to up the contrast by using the tone curve, by upping those midtones slightly and dropping those shadows just a little bit, just to create a little bit more contrast. With that contrast though, it does up the saturation in the image a little bit, so I'm just going to knock the vibrance down slightly just to counteract that, because I don't want it to be unrealistically vibrant and colourful. Okay, yeah, so I'm happy with that. What I'll also do when I'm editing is I'll quite often just hit the backslash key on the keyboard, and that just takes you to a before and now, so I can see the difference that I've made already. It's a lot brighter, there's detail on the bird that's been brought out and on the tree as well, and the background's got a nice glow and a nice bokeh to it as well, or bokeh, whatever you want to call it. There's a nice depth of field either way. So I'm happy with that. And then what I'm going to do is bring in my first radial filter, and what I want to try and do here is create a direction of light to emphasize the bird. So I'm going to put this radial filter in the top left corner, drag it out, and then I'm going to spin it round so it's facing the bird, starting in that top corner. If you tap O, it'll bring up this red, which essentially shows you where that radial filter is affecting. And I'm going to bring this feather up right to 100% so that it creates a really smooth, soft light when I do adjust the settings for it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by bringing the exposure up, and I'm going to overexpose it quite a bit for now, and then up the temperature slightly so it creates a little bit more warmth in the image. And the reason I overexpose it with the radial filter is because then what I'm going to do afterwards is bring the general exposure for the image down again until I'm happy with it. Just kind of maybe about there. Widen this radial filter a little bit and bring it a little bit closer into the image just so it's got a bit of a stronger effect closer to the bird. Kind of like that. And again, have a look. So as you can see there, the difference is there's definitely light coming in from that top left corner, which is shining down onto the bird. And then again, just to emphasize that light, I'm going to put another radial filter around the Treecreeper itself, up that feather to 100, have a look where it's affecting. And I really want it to affect the body of the bird here, because what I'm going to do is slightly up the exposure on the Treecreeper itself, and I'm going to add a little bit of dehaze in there as well. Now, you don't need a lot with the dehaze tool. If you make any significant changes with dehaze, it can have drastic effects on the image. But just a little subtle change with the dehaze can bring up that contrast in that specific area and bring up the colour a little bit more, just making it stand out that little bit more from the background. So I'm pretty happy with that. I don't really do that much editing to my images. I try to keep them as kind of simple as possible. I like playing with the light and finding nice compositions within an image, but when it comes to the actual edit, there's not that much that I change really. This one, however, there is the issue for me here of this branch in the bottom left corner that's just completely distracting me from the subject. So I'm going to get rid of that. But first things first, before I send that over to Photoshop, I'm going to look at the sharpening. I'm going to hold down Option and bring up this mask, and essentially what that does is it shows you where on the image is going to be sharpened. So I'm creating a mask around all of the background really, and just focusing it on the bird and the texture on the bark. Sharpen that and bring that up a little bit more, about there. Reduce some of the noise slightly, about there, maybe 10. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with that now. I think that's looking a lot better than it was. Quite a nice framed, pretty looking image. So I'm going to right click on it now, take it through to Photoshop, and eventually when that opens, aha, here we are. Okay, so we're in Photoshop now. First things first, what I'm going to do is Command J, and that's going to open me up a copied layer of my background. I always do any adjustments on a duplicated layer, so that I'm not in any kind of position where I've made changes that I can't get rid of. There's a fair few ways that you could get rid of this, by using the spot healing brush tool, or just the normal kind of healing brush tools, or even the clone stamp tool potentially. I think what will do a really good job here is using the content aware fill tool. So to use that, what you do is you're going to get your lasso, or tap L to bring up the lasso, to bring up the lasso, and then you're just going to draw around. It doesn't need to be too tight or too close to the branch. And what you do is you go up onto Edit, Content Aware Fill, and then it brings up this second box. On the left hand side, as you can see, it creates an area that you've selected and it keeps that clear, and then it highlights the rest of the image in green. And now what it will try and do is take pixels from the highlighted green area to fill in that area that you've selected. And as you can see on the right hand side, it's done that, and it's actually done it pretty well straight off the bat. It's got rid of it, it's merged it quite well. There's a couple of areas where you can potentially see that it was, but nothing that's too distracting or nothing that I think is too noticeable. I'm going to click OK on that for now, and it's going to export it into a new layer for me. And as you can see, the selected area where it was, and now it's gone. And I'm actually pretty happy with that. I don't think there's too much that I need to do in terms of blending it in. I don't think it's particularly noticeable. So I'm going to Command S, which is going to save that and then import it back into Lightroom as a TIFF. But yeah, as I was saying, part of the reason why I wasn't going to blend this in is because I'm using a graduated filter here. I'm going to bring this up like so, because what I want to do is just darken this corner of the image anyway. It kind of gets rid of any of the bits that I would have needed to blend. And then tap O and you can see where it covers. And what I'm going to do is just go up to this brush, hold down Option. Again, I'm just going to get rid of that darkness in the tree trunk itself. Just kind of keep it on the bottom half of the screen there. I'm going to get another graduated filter here. Bring it down, really quite soft against the top corner. And again, all this is aiming to do is kind of lead you to a certain point in the image, in a subtle a way as possible. So by using the graduated filters on those two corners, on these two corners here, and darkening it, and then using the radial filter to create the light coming in there, it kind of all these corners draw you to the center of the image, to the subject, which of course is the Treecreeper. So yeah, I'm happy with that. I think that's a good edit. So now we'll go into the second one. So for this one, it is already landscape, but I feel like the Treecreeper is a little bit lost in the image. It's not the focus, so I'm going to close it all the way down, so that the Treecreeper is kind of like the center of the image, maybe just to the right as it is moving up and right. So I kind of want it to be I want it to look like it has room to move through the image, like so. Now the exposure in this isn't too bad, it's a little bit dark in the shadows, but I'm just going to boost the exposure overall because I quite like the bright feel to the background in this. So I'm going to leave it quite bright. I'm going to up the temperature a little bit just to make it feel a little bit more summery and warm. Yeah, that's quite nice. And I'm going to up the clarity a little bit here as well, again just to bring the detail out in the tree and Treecreeper. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a radial filter here on the Treecreeper itself, again with a big feather, and I'm just going to up the exposure slightly. I'm going to up the clarity again a little bit more there, and I'm also going to add a tiny bit of dehaze just to bring that contrast and colour in the bird out a little bit more, kind of like that. I'm going to bring the shadows down slightly, just so that the bark, because I feel like the underside of that tree is still a little bit too bright, but that does make the bird a little bit too dark. So I'm just going to brighten the exposure on the Treecreeper a little bit. Before and after, so you've still got a lot of detail in the bird there, and a little bit warmer. I really like that. And then I'm going to add a graduated filter all the way across this corner here, and I'm going to make that a little bit brighter. I'm also going to dehaze and bring that clarity down just to really blur out the background, maybe make it a tiny bit warmer. As you can see when I click O, it's affecting the bird and some of the trunk there as well, so I'm going to go onto the brush, hold down option, and I'm just going to rub out where the filter is affecting the tree, just like that, and then I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, and I'm going to rub out where the filter is affecting the bird. Sweet, there we go. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that as well. I think we're done there. Nothing that I want to get rid of really. There's this in the foreground here, there's obviously a branch or a twig or something that's in the way of the foreground, but I can't really get rid of that. It's a bit tricky, and I don't think it really distracts you from the focus of the bird. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Sick. So there you go, a little insight into how I edit my wildlife photography. If you've enjoyed this, then please do subscribe, like, and leave a comment. And hit the bell if you want to be notified for future videos. I will be doing a few more of these editing tutorials as well. So yeah, hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Peace!